Hello! Today we're going to take a look at the Earth's continents and the relief of the Earth's continents. So if you look at the map, you can see the different continents that we have on Earth. On the left, we have the Americas, which are divided into the subcontinent of North and South America. And then we have Europe, Asia, Africa, Oceania, and Antarctica. Let's take a look at each one a little more closely. The Americas are 15,000 kilometers long and extend over 2 hemispheres. This continent separates the planet's 2 great oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. The Americas are divided into the subcontinents of North America and South America. These subcontinents are connected by the Isthmus of Central America. Where is the Pacific Ocean? It is on the left. And the Atlantic Ocean? It is on the right. This is the Isthmus of Central America. And the equator divides the world into the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Okay? Let's take a look at Europe. Europe is in the western part of Eurasia. It is difficult to identify the boundary between Europe and Asia. The boundary is the limit. So where does Europe stop and where does Europe begin? The boundary means limit. The Ural and Caucasus mountain ranges and the Caspian and Black Seas mark the limits between Europe and Asia. So the Ural Mountains are here and the Caucasus Mountains are here. And then we also have the Caspian and Black Seas. Do you know where they are? Okay, let's take a look at Africa. Africa is separated from Europe by the Mediterranean Sea and from Asia by the Red Sea. It is quite flat, but there are some mountainous areas. One of Africa's main features is basins. Some of these basins have become big lakes. So the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea separate Africa from Europe and Asia. Now let's look at Asia. Asia is in the eastern half of Eurasia. It has 4 large parts. Extensive plains in the north, plains, the flatlands, high mountain ranges in the south, large peninsulas in the Indian Ocean, and archipelagos in the Pacific Ocean. So as we can see, here we have an Arabian Peninsula, the Indian Peninsula, another peninsula. Here are the plains, and here are the mountains. And we've got many islands and archipelagos in the Pacific Ocean. Let's take a look at Oceania. Oceania contains more than 10,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean. There are 4 major areas: Australasia, Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Australasia is made up of Australia and New Zealand. And then we've got Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. Let's look at Antarctica. Antarctica is located at the South Pole, the bottom of the Earth. It is surrounded by the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans. The extreme temperatures as low as -65 degrees Celsius. That's very cold. And strong winds make it a difficult place to live in. Relief of the continents. The surface of the continents is not smooth or uniform. The relief includes mountains, plains, deserts, basins, plateaus, and valleys. Islands in the oceans and seas can be part of the underwater relief. They can come from volcanic activity or from large coral reefs. The coastlines are irregular in shape. Parts of the coast extend into the sea, such as capes and peninsulas, and other parts lead inland, inside the land, such as gulfs, inlets, and fjords. For example, we can see there is a peninsula here where Florida is, and this is another large peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, and parts that go inland, such as the Gulf of Mexico, and in Norway, many fjords that are here in the north. Let's look at the relief of the Americas. There are many islands and peninsulas in the Arctic Ocean. They are connected by the frozen stretches of water that separate them. Among the Atlantic's main features are the islands of Greenland and Newfoundland and the Labrador Peninsula. So as you can see on the map, there are many small peninsulas and islands here in the north. We've got Greenland, Newfoundland is a small island here, and the Labrador Peninsula. Let's take a deeper look at the American relief. In the west, what is west? Very good. In the west, a very long series of high, young, and steep mountain ranges extend from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. In North America are the Rocky Mountains, and in South America, the Andes. So the Rocky Mountains and the Andes Mountains are considered to be young mountains. They are steep with a lot of peaks. On the Pacific coast are the peninsulas of California and Alaska, as well as the Bering Strait. So, this is the peninsula of Alaska. The Bering Strait is a body of water just here, and the peninsula of California is down here. To take a closer look, you can see here is the peninsula of California. Here is another peninsula, the Yucatan Peninsula, and the Florida Peninsula, for another example. The archipelagos of the Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles and the peninsulas of Florida and Yucatan border the Caribbean Sea. So, as we've just seen in this picture, the peninsulas I mentioned before and the Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles are groups of islands, archipelagos, that can be found in the Caribbean Sea. Now, what about South America? To the east of the two continental landmasses are old massifs with rounded peaks, smooth peaks, so not pointed and sharp. The Appalachian Mountains of North America and the Guiana Highlands and the Brazilian Highlands in South America. So in North America, we have the Appalachian Mountains, which are considered older mountains, older than the Rocky Mountains. And in South America, the Guiana Highlands and the Brazilian Highlands. Now we're going to take a look at the relief of Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australasia. That got a little cut off. Let's look at Europe. Because the map is so small in comparison, I've included a picture for us to see it better. Spain is here. Spain and Portugal is on the Iberian Peninsula. And it is separated from the rest of Europe by the Pyrenees Mountains. The Alps are in the middle here. The Scandinavian Mountains, Balkans, etc. Okay? Let's take a look. The highest peaks in Europe are in the young mountain ranges. Again, the young mountain ranges. The Alps, Pyrenees, Carpathians, and Caucasus. The Urals, the French Massif Central, and the Scandinavian Mountains are examples of old mountain ranges. Their shape is smooth from erosion. So, the Urals and the Scandinavian Mountains are considered old, and the Alps, Carpathians, are considered new, and Pyrenees are considered new mountains. There are many peninsulas on the European coast: Scandinavian, Jutland, Iberian, Italian, and Balkan. Europe is surrounded by islands and archipelagos. Iceland, Ireland, Great Britain, Balearic Islands, Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, Crete, and Cyprus. Again, the map is too small for us to see them all, but we know that this is the Iberian Peninsula and the Scandinavian Peninsula. We also know that in the Mediterranean Sea are many of the islands, and Great Britain and Ireland are two of the islands to the north. Now, let's look at Africa. Again, here is a picture to show it a little larger, and I will explain some of the items that we can see. A large part of Africa is an immense high plain. The mountain ranges of Ahagar, Tibesti, and Darfur emerge from this plain. The relief of Africa is also marked by the Atlas Mountains, Sahara Desert, the basins of Chad, Congo, Zambezi, and Niger, the Ethiopian highlands, and Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro. So as we can see, we have the Atlas Mountains, the Sahara Desert, the Chad Basin, the Congo Basin, Zambezi Basin. We also have the Ethiopian highlands. And here is a picture of Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is 5,895 meters high. The coast is compact and regular. Its features include the Horn of Africa and the Gulfs of Guinea, Gabes, and Sidra. There are some smaller islands, but Madagascar is the only one of any considerable size. So this island is the island of Madagascar. Now let's look at Asia. Again, here is a picture to make it larger. The same picture is in your book, where we can see the Plateau of Tibet, the Altai Mountains, the Himalayas, where Mount Everest is, the Zagros Mountains, again the Urals, which separate Europe and Asia, the West Siberian Plain and the Central Siberian Plateau, as well as the Arabian Peninsula, the Hindustan Peninsula, the Stanovoy Mountains, and the Cherskogo Mountains. Japan is here, and we'll look at the other parts after. A series of young mountain ranges occupy Central Asia, including the ranges of Taurus, Zagros, Hindu Kush, and Kunlun. Everest is the world's highest mountain, is in the Himalayas. Here is a picture of Mount Everest, which is the highest mountain in the world. It measures 8,848 meters high. To the east of the continent are archipelagos of volcanic origin: Japan, the Philippines, and Melanesia. So here, Japan, the Philippines, and Melanesia are all groups of islands or archipelagos that are part of Asia. There are various river basins in Asia: the Turpan, the Dead Sea, and the River Ganges. The mountains of Altai, Yavlunovi, and Stanovoy divide the highlands of Central Asia from the lowlands of the north. In the center and south of the continent are the plateaus of Pamir, Tibet, Deccan, the Central Siberian Plateau, and the West Siberian Plain. So for example, here we have the Dead Sea Basin, for example, and the Plateau of Tibet. Now let's look at Australasia. Oceania is divided into Australasia, Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. In Australia, apart from the Great Dividing Range, the rest of the land is made up of plains, like the Nullarbor Plain. The Southern Alps are a young mountain range in New Zealand. So as we can see from the example, the Great Dividing Range are the only mountains in Australia, and the rest is plains. And the Southern Alps are young mountains in New Zealand. This is part of Melanesia. In Micronesia and Polynesia would be more in the Pacific Ocean. I hope you've understood and enjoyed this presentation, and now you're going to play a game. See you next time.